Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivasesha Sunyavari Paschcha Deshatani Shri Shikshastaka Chetudarpanam Arjanam Bhavamahadavagni Navapanam Shriyaikarava Chandrika Viturnam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Bhardanam Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtana movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
Nam Nam Makari Bahudani Jasava Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarani Nakala Atadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hadmajanina Raga.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to all living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
Pranarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari.
One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, and one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadis Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhakti Ahaitukitrai. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire a beautiful woman, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. Patitam mam vishame bhavam buddho kripayatava pada pankajas idaduli sadrishim vachintaya.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
Nayanam kala dasuradharaya vadanam gadgadaya udaya gira ulakai nichitam vapokada tavanam agrahane bhavishyati.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
Gayitam nimeshena chakshusha pravishayitam sunyayitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me.
O Govinda, feeling your separations, feeling or considering the moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are following from my eyes like torrents of the rain. and I am feeling all vacant in the world of your absence.
Ashisya padaratam punastumam adarshanam marmahatam karotu va yatata vidahantam ampato maprana natastu sa eva napara.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even as if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is complete, free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. All glories to Sri Chaitanya.
Yeah. So last week, everyone remembers, we covered the 10 offenses. We covered the Bhakti Latta Bija, how by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. By the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna and Guru, one gets the Bhakti Latta Bija awaken within their heart. And we talked about the mad elephant offense. That's the greatest offense, and we have to be careful to protect this Bhakti Latta Bij by watering, the watering process and a fence around it. So it can grow nicely, cutting through all the layers of the universe and going back to Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna's lotus feet.
And then fruits.
And the fruit of love of God
Comes out of this tree. It's a long process, but eventually it'll grow there. Okay, so I'm reading here from, it's still in the introduction, page 35. There are still other factors which can disturb the plant of devotional service. As this plant grows, the weeds of material desires may also grow. When a person advances in devotional service, it is natural that many persons will come to him requesting to become disciples and will offer him some material gains. If one is attracted by a large number of disciples offering material conveyances and forgets his duty as a bona fide spiritual master, the growth of the plant will be impeded simply by taking advantage of material conveniences. One may become addicted to enjoying material comforts. So now, even after you got this tree going so nicely, you become spiritually advanced. People come to you, they want to get initiated by you, they want instructions from you, and they give you things, and then you get used to these nice things they give you, and that can also interfere with that plant. And you begin to neglect the plant itself. So other impediments are to desire liberation or material name and fame by discharging devotional service, or to neglect the prohibitions. So you may want liberation. I want to, get liberated from, we shouldn't even want that. We should just want to please Krishna. Or material name and fame. So some people actually discharge devotional service for material name and fame. People may not notice, but there are people who do that. Or neglect the prohibitions. So these prohibitions are mentioned in the authorized scriptures. One should not indulge in illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, or eating meat. Indeed, one should not eat anything other than Krishna prasadam, food offered to Krishna. These are the restrictions for one who is attempting to advance in devotional service. If one does not follow these principles strictly, there will be a severe disturbance in the discharge of devotional service. If one is not particularly careful by watering the plant of devotional service, one will instead nourish the weeds described above, which will then grow very luxuriantly and hamper one's progress. The idea is that when one waters a garden, not only does the desired plant grow rapidly, but the unwanted plants grow also. If the gardener does not see these weeds and cut them down, they will overcome and choke the plant of devotion. It is thus the duty of the neophyte devotee to cut down all the weeds that may grow by the watering process of devotional service. If one is careful to guard against the growth of these weeds, the plant of devotion will grow luxuriantly and reach the ultimate goal, Goloka Vrindavan. When the living entity engaged in devotional service relishes the fruit of love of Godhead, he forgets all religious rituals aimed at improving his economic condition. He no longer desires to satisfy his senses, and he no longer desires to become one with the Supreme Lord by merging into his effulgence. So when he comes to the point of getting the fruits of love of Godhead, he doesn't want anything else. Nothing material. This is all. He's completely satisfied. It says when one reaches samadhi, he thinks that there is no greater gain. You know, everybody always wants more. It doesn't matter how rich you are, you always want more. That's the nature. But for the devotee who has love of God, he doesn't want anything else. He's completely satisfied. But before he gets to that platform, there may be so many different temptations and he has to avoid them. So it's interesting, if anybody's ever grown a garden, it's very easy to understand these things about the weeds, because that's what happens. And they have different tools you can buy even to get rid of the weeds. But you definitely have to get rid of your weeds. So they'll definitely overtake your nice plants. You want to read?
Yeah, one thing though about some people think that we're just very rigid, we don't do this, we don't do that, but these rules like no eating of meat, fish, and eggs, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and gambling are actually for our protection, to protect us from the influence of Kali Yuga. And there's 4 pillars of spiritual life that are destroyed by engaging in these activities. And they're truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, and austerity. So by engaging in gambling, we lose our truthfulness. By engaging in meat eating, we lose our mercy. By engaging in illicit sex, we can lose cleanliness. And by engaging in intoxication, we can lose our austerity. I believe that's it. So these 4 principles are actually help protect us from the onslaughts of Kali Yuga.
Yeah, they say
Very
they
prominent.
4 regulated principles of freedom.
Yeah.
So you think you're bound when you have to do this, but actually you're free. You become free from the influence of your senses dragging you all over the place. You want me to read that?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind. I'm just thinking how when I was just reading this, Prabhupada writes so wonderfully. It's just so easy to read. Sometimes I read some books that other devotees write, and it's really not so easy to read. This is a great writer. He can write for the very intellectuals and also the common person, and everyone can appreciate it. It's not often you can find people that can write like that. So there are many practices leading to spiritual knowledge and transcendental bliss, including the ritualistic sacrifices recommended in the Vedas, the execution of austerities, the pious duties of the practice of mystic yoga. These all reward different results to their performers, but all these rewards appear to glitter only as long as one is not elevated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So ritualistic sacrifices, Anyway, all these different things, different austerities to get some different things, get mystic powers. They're just some glitters. If you don't have, they're not very attractive. It's like nothing. But all these rewards appear to glitter only. You know, like sometimes you see these little sparkles, they look nice. But compared to like some real genuine jewels, there's no comparison. So all these rewards appear to glitter only as long as one is not elevated to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Love of God is dormant in everyone, and it can be awakened from its dormant position by the execution of pure devotional service. Just as a person bitten by a serpent and fallen unconscious can be revived by smelling ammonia. So, or if somebody faints, you can be revived by smelling ammonia, because not as many people have the experience of being bitten by a snake and being unconscious. But people know more about how someone fainted, but by ammonia can actually, wake you up from that condition. So love of God, it's dormant in everyone and can be awakened. Prabhupada also gives an example, just like the ability to walk in a child, the ability is there. And if he just, and eventually he can do it, he can just walk. Or how fire is in wood and you can get that fire to come out. So love of God is dormant in everyone. So this love of Krishna is there. And we just have to do certain things and then it will come out. So after speaking, do you have anything to say?
Oh, those certain things we need to do, the Chaitanya Marjanam, we have to cleanse the heart. That seed is covered up with so much conditioning from so many lives that we've had. So we have so much lust, greed, envy, attachment. We all have the same types of dust, maybe different amounts, but the same stuff. But by this Chaitanya Marjanam, by this chanting of the holy names of the Lord, we cleanse it away gradually, gradually, gradually. And then it'll be revealed and we'll be able to see ourself in Krishna.
After speaking in this way about pure devotional service, Lord Chaitanya began to describe that service and its symptoms to Rupa Goswami. He explained that in pure devotional service, there can be no desire other than the desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. Does anybody here have any other desires? Okay.
Not me. Not me. I said not me.
That's what I want to hear.
I knew you wanted to hear that.
And that in pure devotional service, there can be no desire other than the desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. So we can be honest with ourselves and know that we're not engaged yet in pure devotional service, because we may still have some other desires.
I can say only a few thousand, okay, at least.
Yeah, well, that's it. But who's counting?
Exactly.
Plus count.
So in Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshiping any demigod or even any other form of Krishna. That's interesting. That's really nice. Because when you're really into Krishna consciousness, you don't want to not even worship any other form of Krishna. I mean, we worship all different forms of Krishna. Nrsingadev, I actually have Nrsingadev. So we're having the Nrsinga Chaturdasi is coming up in this month, so we worship Nrsingadev. So we do worship other forms of Krishna, but in Krishna consciousness, there is no scope for worshiping any demigod for sure, or even other forms of Krishna, nor is there room for indulgence in speculative empiric philosophy or fruitive activities. So as far as worshiping other forms, it's basically Krishna is the main person. We worship these other forms because it helps us to become Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada certainly worshiped these other forms.
We understand that they're not different from Krishna, that they also are Krishna. They come from Krishna.
They're
Just like Lord
Krishna's
Chaitanya.
expansions, yeah.
It's like Lord Chaitanya is Krishna.
So one should be free from all these contaminations. A devotee should accept only those things that are favorable for keeping his body and soul together, and should reject those things that increase the demands of the body. So basically, you should only eat enough to keep body and soul together. Everybody's doing that, I assume. We shouldn't overeat, because overeating, it increases the demands of the body. Then you want other things. So only the bare necessities for bodily maintenance should be accepted. By making one's bodily necessities secondary, one can primarily devote his time to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy names of God.
This sounds familiar. This is just like when we did Shri Ishupanishad, Ishavasya principle, that everything belongs to the Lord and that we should just accept our quota. The same thing.
Right. So we shouldn't take more than is necessary. Of course, everybody pretty much, eats more than enough to keep body and soul together. We can see in pictures of in the Holocaust, and when the people were just skin and bones, but the soul was still there. But we can do a little bit better than that. We don't have to go that far. Just don't overeat, that's all. It's hard, it's easy to say. It may not be so easy to do, but try not to overeat.
Why would you say?
What?
Why would you say one shouldn't overeat?
Why? Because that's more than you need to keep your body and soul together.
But is there something more, some effect?
Nah.
Just to leave enough for others.
In case you don't have any food later.
But doesn't it also make one lethargic and this, if you eat too much, you sleep more, don't you find?
What?
If you eat too much, you sleep more?
Yes, you sleep more,
Yeah.
your sex desire increases. So many things from overeating, things can happen. So you have to try not to eat more than you actually need. But you don't want to eat so little that you can't even move.
And so that you're not always thinking about food.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've tried that in the past.
Being with him is like every day's a fast day.
And then after a few of those, then I decided, well, I think I got to eat a lot now.
And it's a feast day, huh?
Yeah, right. Anyway, don't talk about me. Pure devotional service means engaging all one's senses in the service of the Lord. At the present moment, our senses are all designated because the body is designated. So we think that our body belongs to a particular society or a particular country or a particular family. In this way, the body is bound by so many designations. Similarly, the senses belong to the body. And when the body is subject to such designations, the senses are also. Oh, this is an Italian arm. So thus, one engages the senses on behalf of family, society, nation, and so on. When the senses are so engaged, one cannot cultivate Krishna consciousness. The senses must be purified, and this is possible when one purely understands that he belongs to Krishna and that his life belongs to Krishna. In other words, that his identity is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. In this way, one can engage his senses in the service of the Lord, and such engagement is called pure devotional service. So everybody identifies with the body. I'm an American, I'm an Indian, I'm I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian. So we all identify with this body, and our senses we use for that particular case also. But we should start identifying ourselves with who we really are. I'm not this body. I'm just wearing this dress. So basically, I'm identifying with the dress I'm wearing. Like somebody driving a car who identifies with his car, and somebody hits his car and you hit me. It didn't hit you, we hit your car, but you identify with it. So with this body, we all identify with our bodies, and we have to start identifying with who we really are, that I'm the soul within this body. I've had so many bodies. And if I continue identifying with this body, I'll have so many more bodies. So I have to identify with who I actually am. I'm a spirit soul. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. So that's who I am. So I have to use my senses and my mind in the service of Krishna.
The master of the senses, Hrishikesha. Prabhupada's quoting the verse here, Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam. Hrishikesha, Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. That we have to get rid of all our upadis, all our designations, Italian, etc. And by engaging in the service of the master of the senses only, then we'll be able to control our senses and drop these designations and understand who we are, Nitya Krishna Das, eternal servants of Krishna.
And you can see all the problems in the world are there because of these designations. I'm white, I'm black, I'm Russian, I'm an American.
Yeah.
Everybody's just fighting each other, all based on these bodily designations. And people in the bodily concept are really, really, very much in the bodily concept many times. I remember this one Russian devotee. She came to America, and eventually she became either, I think, a U.S. citizen or got a green card, whatever. But she went back to visit Russia. And then the customs, they were like, you left your mother country, how can you do that? It's like, come on, it's a much better place. but they were so much in their bodily concept, that you shouldn't do stuff like that. Leave your country and adopt another country. That's so bad. So that's all the different designations that people have. So and that's all the problems. What problems would we have if everybody saw each other as a spirit soul? Saw yourself as a spirit soul and everyone as a spirit soul. Where would be the difficulty? You know how much billions and trillions of dollars can be saved from building up the military strength of all these countries? All this money can be used to help people. But anyway, people are still in this bodily concept, and so are we to a great extent. So at least we should know better and try to get out of this bodily concept. So a pure devotee accepts the transcendental loving service of the Lord, but rejects all kinds of liberation for his personal sense gratification. He rejects all kinds of liberation for his personal sense gratification. This is stated by Lord Kapila in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:29, 11 to 14. In his explanation of the nature of pure devotional service, as soon as a pure devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, his mind at once flows towards the Lord, just as the waters of the Ganges flow down toward the sea. So as soon as you hear, they start thinking about Krishna. So such spontaneous attraction of the devotee's mind to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead signifies pure devotional service. So let me just go back, and then we got to look at ourselves if this happens to us. As soon as a pure devotee, let's just say as soon as a devotee hears the glories and transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart, his mind at once flows toward the Lord, just as the waters of the Ganges flow down to the sea. So to the degree in which our minds flows to Krishna, when we start hearing topics of Krishna, that's how close we are to pure devotional service. So such spontaneous attraction of the devotee's mind to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead signifies pure devotional service.
It's like Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. As soon as they heard about Lord Chaitanya, they wanted to go. You know, their minds were fixed. They couldn't be deviated on achieving the Lord's association. So it's just also remember Bhavananda. Prabhupada said something about the devotees all. I'm not sure who all was there, but Bhavananda was there and some of the other swamis or something. And Prabhupada said that my spiritual master has sent you. And Bhavananda said, how can that be? You know, we come from such low families, you know, meat eaters and drinkers. And how could that be, you know, that he sent us? And Prabhupada said, that's just superficial. As soon as you heard, you came running. You know, so that reminded me of this. Right. You know, as soon as you get the opportunity or you hear, it makes sense. You know, it clicks, and therefore you're able to pursue. And that happened to a lot of devotees. Yeah. Once they heard from Prabhupada, once they got a book, or, you know, spoke to the devotees,
Well, once I heard the kirtan,
so had prasadam, you know, something came in contact somehow. They, you know, like an arrow, or shoot towards the goal.
I remember walking with my mother downtown Brooklyn, and I was already somewhat into Krishna consciousness. I'd go to the temple, but my mother didn't know. And there's a big kirtan. My mother says, look at those weirdos. Yeah, that's another thing. When she stayed here and I came down with a dhoti on, she says, how come you're wearing a diaper?
At least you saw them. And then she had prasadam.
And she used to say nothing for nothing.
Yeah. That's a famous saying. Anyway, I don't want to talk about her right now. Not that I don't want to, but I want to read about Lord Chaitanya. So devotional service is pure when one engages in the service of the Supreme Lord without any selfish motive and without being hampered by any material impediment. So you might say, well, how can you not be hampered by material impediments? They stop you so, but there is no material impediment to devotional service. You know, even if you plan on doing something for the Lord, you may not be able to do that. There may be some material impediments, but you're making that effort. You're trying. There's no material impediment to devotional service. It doesn't actually, the results, you may not get the results you're trying to get, but the results are up to Krishna. They're not up to you. But if you just make the effort and you try and you don't if there's some impediment, you don't just give up. You keep trying. I remember once when our van, we're driving in a van, the whole thing turned over. It was icy and somebody was driving and anyway, just the van kept going from one side of the road to the other. All the cars moved out of the way. And then we went off the road and rolled down the hill. We landed upside down. And okay, we're supposed to go out on book distribution. So then we got towed in or something. We got the books. We rented another vehicle. Nobody got hurt or anything. Amazing. And we were going 50 miles an hour when it happened. We slowed up. We were going faster. We slowed up. And then we couldn't let this van crash stop us from distributing Prabhupada's books. We have to do our service. So we rented another vehicle. We transferred all the books and we went out that same day and and went out and distributed books. So you have to just keep trying. So don't ever give up because of some material impediment. So the pure devotee does not desire to live on the same planet as the Supreme Lord, nor does he desire the same opulence as the Lord, nor does he desire to have the same form as the Lord, nor to live with him side by side, nor to merge into his existence. Even if the Lord offers the pure devotee such rewards, he rejects them. Of course, in other places, it says that he would never accept, merging into the effulgence of the Lord, but he sometimes may accept one of the other 4 types of liberation. But here it says he doesn't, he rejects them. He's not interested in them. He's only interested in serving Krishna in any way Krishna wants. If Krishna wants him to serve him on his planet, then he'll do that. But he doesn't want to do this for himself. He just wants to do what Krishna wants. The point is that a pure devotee is so much absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord that he has no time to think of any benefit beyond his immediate engagement. Just as an ordinary materialistic businessman thinks of nothing else when he is absorbed in his business, a pure devotee, when engaged in the service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement. I'm thinking of a mundane example. One time we had this person when we were in Boston who sold Amway. Anybody here heard of Amway? Okay, Amway too. Anyway, this guy was this Amway salesman, and they are pretty fanatical. And he said that all you have to do, to really succeed is just see Amway. Everywhere you look, anybody you see, you have to just tell them about Amway, and that's a material thing. And he's so much absorbed in that, but so we can learn from that. That's the way we should be with Krishna, that we just see Krishna. We just want to serve Krishna. We want to please Krishna. We want to tell others about Krishna. Everywhere we look, we should just think of Krishna. Just like in book distribution, when we used to have marathons, which they still do, but we don't participate personally. But it used to be, one of the things is that when we eat books, we sleep books. Every single thing is just books. We just think of how we can distribute books. And everywhere you go, you just think of books. You go out to the store, you bring books with you. You don't go out without a book. So you can look while you're going, who can I sell this book to? So this is a marathon. You want to say anything? So just like a businessman thinks only of his business, he gets absorbed in his business. Pure devotee, engaged in the service of the Lord, does not think of anything beyond that engagement. And we can look at Srila Prabhupada. That's all he thought about. He just thought about how to spread this Krishna consciousness. This is what his guru wanted. This is what Lord Chaitanya wanted. This is what Krishna wants. So that's all he thought about.
And it's like the param drištva nivartate, having the higher taste. Automatically, everything else, nothing can compare. That's what keeps them focused. Even on book distribution, they got a higher taste. They got this taste of service. We were listening to what's her name, Driti, one of the artists, when they were doing the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 months. They practically didn't sleep, and it was a marathon. They were just painting to get these books out, and devotees were typing, and all hours of the day and night and everything. And they said afterwards, they were like, sorry it was over. They were so absorbed in such camaraderie, and they experienced such a high joy, nothing could compare to that. So in the same way, if we get absorbed in our service and Krishna consciousness, we can also, experience that higher taste and automatically lose the desire for other things. It doesn't have to be artificial.
It can't be artificial.
Yeah, it's genuine.
If it's artificial, it will not last.
It won't last.
So one who possesses the symptoms described above has been elevated to the topmost position of devotional service. And it is by such transcendental loving service alone that one can surpass the influence of Maya and relish pure love of Godhead. As long as one desires material benefit or liberation, which are called the two witches of allurement, one cannot relish the taste of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord.
Bhukti and mukti. Right? Two
You
witches.
talk.
Wanting the, what was it? The liberation.
Yeah,
Is that
liberation.
And then the mystic cities.
No, they ref of liberation, which, let's see. As long as one desires material
Material
benefit
benefit. Sense gratification
or liberation.
or liberation. Compared to two witches. Right?
Doesn't compare them here, but yeah.
Mukti and mukti.
Okay, there are three
Oh, we should
states.
ask if there's any questions. 'cause
Oh, does
it's-
anyone have any questions?
that's what I was
Yeah.
looking at the time. Any questions thus far? Any realizations? Anything you want to share?
I'd like to say it probably a few more weeks we'll finish the introduction.
No, actually, we're on chapter 1.
Oh, this is chapter 1.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, a few more weeks we'll be
Seems
up to
like
chapter
introduction.
2. Okay, so nobody has anything? Okay.
It's really nice when we're reading this. You can see Prabhupada is just translating the verses. If you look in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they gave the Sarvapadi Vinirmuktvam. And then I saw the next verse was about how the Ganges flows, to the ocean, that the devotee's attention flows to the Lord, quoting the Bhagavatam. That's right there. It's just like, it's Shastra.
I remember when Prabhupada was still on this planet, there was one, I guess, I'm pretty sure it was an Indian man, and he, it may not have been, but I think pretty sure it was. He said out, it seems like Vyasadeva, that Srila Prabhupada is Srila Vyasadeva, the way he's writing all of these things. So that was a nice glorification of Srila Prabhupada. I'm not saying Srila Prabhupada was Srila Vyasadeva, certainly could be. Come again, but he's written so many wonderful transcendental books for the benefit in simple language so we can understand. So there are 3 stages of devotional service. The first is the beginning stage or cultivation. The second is the realization of service. And the third, the supreme stage, is the attainment of love of God. So we know there are 3 kinds of devotees, right?
Devotees
So there's the
these-
neophyte devotee.
But would this be Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana?
I was thinking more of Vaidhi
Kanishta?
Bhakti and
Oh, ecstasy and pure love of God?
Raganuga Bhakti. Yeah, pure love of God. But anyway, we'll see. Maybe it says it here. I don't remember. So anyway, the stages. The beginning stage of cultivation. The second is the realization of service. And the third, the supreme stage, is the attainment of love of Godhead. There are 9 different methods of cultivating devotional service. Anybody know those 9 methods? Let's hear quickly. Somebody, anybody? Yes, Nanda Gopal.
Shravanam, Kirtanam.
Yes.
Continue or one?
Vandanam.
Anyway, I don't really need all 9, but I just wanted to know if you understood 9 different methods. These are the 9 methods. So you can just hear about Krishna and completely become pure. You can just chant about Krishna and completely become pure. You can just remember and become completely purified. And there are different devotees who have perfected their lives by each and every one of these 9 processes of devotional service. Or you can do a lot of them and eventually also become pure. which we're doing. We're trying to do all of them to some extent.
More the merrier.
Yeah. And all these processes are employed by the neophyte in the first stage. Interesting. So there are 9 methods for cultivating devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. And all these processes are employed by the neophyte in the first stage. If one is engaged in chanting and hearing with devotion and faith, his material misgivings gradually become vanquished. Yeah, as his faith in devotional service increases more and more, he becomes assured of a higher perfectional position. In this way, one becomes firmly fixed in devotional service, increases his taste for it, becomes attached to it, and feels ecstasy, the preliminary stage of love of Godhead. Attainment of ecstasy is produced by executing this process of cultivating devotional service. When one continues the process of hearing and chanting, attachment to Krishna gradually thickens, and at last is called love of Godhead. It's interesting about this ecstasy. There's some drug. I don't know what it's like. I never tried it, but it's called ecstasy. And you know, it's a material thing they're trying to actually experience ecstasy, and that's the closest they can come to it, which is no relation whatsoever with real transcendental ecstasy. And this, you don't need any external drug or anything. It's just by practicing this hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, you can come to this stage of ecstasy. Anything?
Oh no, just it's like he's quoting the verse Adho Shraddha, this one, the progression, development, faith.
You tell them. Don't tell
Well, the
me.
Bhakti Shastris will know this verse. That,
Bhakti Shastris.
yeah,
We got a group out here called the Bhakti Shastris.
yeah. From Shraddha to Prema, faith all the way, the stages that are listed all the way up to love of God.
So in the stage of transcendental love of God, there are further developments. More than that. Known as transcendental affection, emotion, ecstasy, and extreme and intense attachment. These are technically known by the terms raga, anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava. The progress. Okay,
It's so technical. You can see how it is a science, the science of devotional service. You know, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's just all laid out there. So scientific.
Yeah, the process from one stage to another is like the thickening of sugarcane juice. In the first stage, sugarcane juice is a thin liquid. When by evaporation it becomes thicker and thicker, it turns into molasses. Then it turns into granules of sugar, then rock candy, and so on. Just as sugarcane juice progresses from one stage to another, similarly, transcendental love for the Supreme Lord develops by stages.
So where's the jaggery when it's granules of sugar?
Anybody want to answer that question?
I think it's more at the molasses stage, right?
Yeah.
But it's solid, jaggery. Molasses is a liquid.
So just a little after, like granules of sugar.
Maybe let it cool down and it gets solid.
The jaggery.
Isn't jaggery out of a different plant, though? Isn't jaggery from palm sugar, not cane sugar?
I don't know.
From what sugar you said, Radhe?
From palm.
I think there's a different one, date palm sugar. I think there's
Yeah.
different kinds of jaggery. And that one's really good.
I think we have more experience with gardening than we do with cooking down sugar.
Yeah, that's
but this-
afterwards.
But
yeah.
this was written by those people who did all these things, so they give these examples. So when one actually becomes situated on the transcendental platform, he becomes steady. Unless one is so situated, his position is not steady and he may fall down. When one is actually situated transcendentally, there is no fear of falling down. This stage is technically called Sthayi Bhava, and that's where you can't fall down anymore. There are further
I
developments.
looked up the word
Okay.
the other day because I
She
saw
looked
it.
up the word.
Because I was wondering, what is sthayi? I looked it up. It means like permanent, constant, permanent. Fixed.
Okay, when one is actually situated transcendentally, there is no fear of falling down. This stage is technically called Sthayi Bhava, or fixed permanent stage. There are further developments within this stage known as Vaibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika, and Vyabhichari. So sometimes you might hear all these things and say, oh God, that's just too much. How am I going to remember all this? I don't think you have to remember it, but when you're there, you'll know everything. So just keep chanting Hare Krishna. And it's there for those who would like to study all of this. So when these four ingredients are added to the steadfast position of pure transcendental life, there is actually an exchange of rasa, or transcendental mellows, with the Supreme Lord. So you can just imagine what that feels like, having these exchanges of mellows with the Supreme Lord. This exchange in loving reciprocation between the lover and the beloved is generally called Krishna Bhakti Ras, the transcendental taste, or exchanging loving sentiments between the devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It should be noted, however, that the transcendental loving exchanges stand on the steadfast position of Sthayi Bhava, as explained above. So you're not going to get these exchanges before you get to that platform. You may have some exchange. Krishna may actually give you some realizations, or will definitely give you realizations before you come to Sthayi Bhava. But you're not going to experience this real transcendental loving exchanges with Krishna until you come to this platform of Sthayi Bhava, where you're permanently on that position. No question of ever falling down, as explained above. So the basic principle of Vaibhava is Sthayi Bhava, and all other activities are auxiliary for the development of transcendental love. Okay, what time is it? Oh, there's no time. Okay, anyone have any questions? Write this down.
I think you had a couple questions.
I had questions.
No, on the paper if you wanted.
I don't know where it is, but we can ask that in a minute, but see if anybody else has questions.
Anybody have any questions? I think I see a hand raised. Yes, Nandagopal.
Yes. So, Prabhu, while you were speaking, I was just thinking that in the real world also, we have read and seen that there are devotees who have taste of ecstasy, or even Srila Prabhupada. I remember one pastime where he went into ecstasy. So, question is, ecstasy in principle is a spiritual activity. So, why does even it end? Like once you have ecstasy, shouldn't you just stay ecstatic? Ecstasy should stay always because it's a spiritual aspect. So why does it end?
I don't think it ends. Sometimes when we say Prabhupada went into ecstasy, I think he was always in ecstasy because he's serving Krishna purely. But sometimes he would forget about the external material world and his external body. And that's when he went into ecstasy, where he's just with Krishna in the spiritual world. He's not like here. Then he comes back. So for preaching, in one sense, it controls his ecstasy.
I was just going to say that. Does he control his ecstasy?
Yeah. Even when he was questioned, what should we do? Because when this
Oh,
happened,
yeah, that's
the
nice.
devotees didn't know whether to just be quiet and watch or just to chant Hare Krishna. And
Well, what they did is they watched for a little while, and then someone started chanting.
we should chant. Yeah.
And then after that, then they discussed, some people were saying you shouldn't have chanted, because it brought him back out of this ecstasy. And others said you should. So they asked Srila Prabhupada, they asked Srila Prabhupada what they should do when he goes into this ecstasy. And Prabhupada said,
It doesn't happen very often.
yeah,
He's
no,
like
he said
really
it like
humble.
a question. It doesn't happen very often, does it? Or something.
He's really humble. It's the Uttama Adhikari, they're on the topmost level. But in order to perform their mission, spreading Krishna consciousness, they have to come down to the Madhyama level, and that's not exhibiting,
But I would think you can never go wrong with chanting, right?
What?
yeah.
You can never go wrong with chanting. I said.
Trying to think of when you can go wrong with chanting.
No.
When Prabhupada's trying to concentrate.
Right.
Prabhupada didn't answer the question, right?
Right,
He said
no.
it doesn't happen very often. But I would think that the chanting, it could not have been wrong to chant.
Right, but they were thinking it's, he's in ecstasy. Why should you bring him back if he's, in the spiritual world? Let him stay for as long as he wants.
But he was always in ecstasy. It's just sometimes different symptoms would manifest, but he was always,
He would
you would be in his presence and other devotees would feel that ecstasy. Their hairs would stand on end. That one, our God sister, she was pulling the cart and her hair started standing on end and she turned around and there was Prabhupada. So she felt it before. And the tears would flow from devotees' eyes. So many things.
She said she felt Srila Prabhupada before she saw him.
Yeah.
She never saw him. That's the first time. And her hair started standing on end, and she looked, and Prabhupada was right next to her.
And the devotees, they felt they could do anything, because of Prabhupada.
But I think the ecstasy we're talking about with Prabhupada is when he loses. Lord Chaitanya did the same thing. He completely, to a much greater degree than Prabhupada. He completely forgot about what?
Especially towards the end.
Yeah. He just went to the spiritual world. I don't want to get into it, but the limbs of his body, his bones would separate. And they're just within the body, they're just separated, like this bone is separated from this bone. And anyway, it's hard to understand Lord Chaitanya. Sometimes the limbs of his body would go into his trunk here.
Like Jagannath.
Right. So, that was rare that Lord Chaitanya did that. So Prabhupada, these things happened.
Because they have a mission.
But when that happened, wouldn't it be rather embarrassing to just sit and watch the person rather than chant?
I don't
think
know.
They didn't want to disturb. They just didn't want to disturb.
Oh.
Yeah, you could picture Gita Mala. There's 100, 200 devotees just watching, and Prabhupada goes into ecstasy while he's giving class. And then you say, "Are you okay, Srila Prabhupada?"
No, but I would maybe chanting is not so bad. I'm trying to decide which one was the right answer. That Srila Prabhupada.
Well, people felt both ways. And I would think if you are going to chant, you chant really softly. But I don't think he said which they should do.
I know, that's I'm curious which was the right answer, but like
I think they're both right. I don't think there's one that's wrong.
maybe depends on where, when.
Well, I haven't had an opportunity, so I guess I don't need an answer.
Yeah, yeah. If I go into ecstasy like that, you could check.
What should we do?
Should all leave the room and go home.
If I go into ecstasy like that, it probably means I'm sleeping.
It probably doesn't really matter what you do. You know, what you do might not affect that person. They're in, you know,
Right.
their world, you know.
But with Lord
'Cause
Chaitanya, they would chant and he'd come out of it.
Yeah.
You know, he fell in front of the Lord Jagannath and they brought him and they didn't know if he was dead or alive. They put a cotton swab by his nose and they could see a faint movement, so he was still alive. And they did all the things that you normally do to get a person out of this trance, and nothing worked. And then the devotees came, and he went ahead because the devotees, it's a long story, but he went ahead by himself to Jagannath Puri. Then the devotees followed. And when they came, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told him that he did everything and he can't seem to revive him, they chanted Hare Krishna and Lord Chaitanya was revived. So that's one way you can do it when you're really having a problem with reviving them. Anyway, we don't have this problem anymore. Any other questions?
But they themselves don't seek out experiencing these devotional symptoms, just like Daruka, you know, he was feeling ecstasy and he couldn't fan properly, so he thought it, you know, it was impeding his service, so he wanted it to go away.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada didn't plan on these things. He just somehow thinks of something, and all of a sudden he just, you know,
overwhelmed with emotion. He just saw Lord Chaitanya Gaura-Nitai at all the temples he was going to, and then he sang Parama Karuna, and it just couldn't hold it back anymore. Just the mercy of the Lord, you know, what he's doing, transforming all these Mlechas and Yavanas into Vaishnavas. I don't know what he was thinking, you know, but I just...
Right, but that's...
It's, yeah.
No, he goes in front of the deities, he cry.
There's some exchange going on there.
Yeah, he would say things. He was on the far end. They're wondering, can you see Krishna? Because he's so far away. And then what did he say about the deities, Krishna?
He's got tilak in his eye.
Yeah, from way across the room. And he said, Krishna has tilak in his eye. Take that tilak out of his eye.
They had to go up close. Oh,
little tiny speck of tilak. And Prabhupada is across the room. Now, I don't think he saw it. Krishna somehow told him, because you can't see it even from standing in front of the altar. And he's across the room, and they were wondering if it was too far away for him to see the deities. And then he tells them that Krishna has tilak in his eye.
And one time in New York, he told him that Krishna looks tired, and that just recently they started waking the deity up earlier.
Yeah.
That's like the Narasimha deity told, I don't know which one, Jananivasa or Pankajangri, that the light was too bright in the morning.
Oh no, it was a new brahmachari who was really scared. He was really scared of Lord Nrsingadev, and every time he went on, he was real fearful to go on the altar. And he'd get off and he'd just run back to his room. And one night he had a dream. No, he heard a noise, and he was looking around and he felt the bed shake, and he thought that the person sleeping under him shook the bed. And he looked at the feet of his bed and he saw Lord Nrsingadev. And Lord Nrsingadev put his hands on his shoulders, and he said that he told him that he doesn't have to be afraid when he's doing his service. That he said, and don't shine the light on my face. And I guess he had these marks for a few years on his shoulder. And I guess he couldn't sleep after that. He was like pacing up and down. And then finally he told, Jananivasa Pankajangri, what had happened.
Yeah, I don't think
And
so.
he came in his underpants or something to the temple, and everybody was looking at him very weirdly.
Yeah.
something. He wasn't fully dressed when he went to the temple. He was doing something.
But after that, they softened the light in the morning when they woke up the deities.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, the lamps.
Yeah. I can understand. As soon as you wake up, you don't want to see this bright light.
Yeah.
You want like a softer night light.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions? Okay, let's offer our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees. Panchakalpatra, Vishya, Baba, thank you all very much.
Best friend on Prabhu Mother Jiva ki jai.
Prabhu and Mataji's, if time permits, we request you to stay on for Saturday night Kirtan. We have Madhav Kanta Prabhuji and family.
Jai, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Prabhuji, one question
For who?
for Dev Prabhu.
You have to say Dev Prabhu.
Dev Prabhu,
Yes, Chaitanya.
should we continue until 8:30 or should we do for 30 minutes?
You can do for 30 minutes.
Okay.
Hari Bol.